Excellent. Let's start unleashing the power of DLT payments. When we were thinking about a theme for this keynote, we were of course thinking about roadmaps because we work in product and we deliver roadmaps. Do we always deliver on the roadmaps? That's a very different question. And yeah, we all have some PTSD around roadmaps, so we thought, okay, maybe let's not do these bar charts with timelines. And I think they're just linked to a lot of disappointment. So we wanted to do something more exciting. That actually reminded me of a definition that I heard a long time ago. And a roadmap should be a story about the future and why it will be exciting and amazing. And that's what we want to talk to you about today, the future of payments. We heard a lot about, I think, the future of payments today already. And of course, we are biased. So we believe in the future of DLT, distributed ledger technology. And who are we? We are BVNK. If you haven't heard of us yet, we are powering this event. Wonderful event. Thank you so much for the organizers. Maybe we can do a little bit of an applause for our organizing team. We are now 200 members, almost around the globe. I joined roughly a year ago. We were 100. It's a super exciting ride. We are active in more than 60 countries, working every week to expand that. And yeah, last year processed more than $2 billion in volume. It's really an awesome story. Speaking about stories, a few weeks ago, I was talking to a friend, and she works for a big fintech here in London. I think it's actually based somewhere over there. And she was telling me quite a disturbing story, something that happened to her over Easter. Saturday morning on Easter, she received a call from the IT operations team that withdrawals are failing in multiple countries. They all jumped on a call, logged an incident, and quickly they discovered in the logs insufficient funds, insufficient funds, insufficient funds. They were working with a local partner who was facilitating the withdrawals in these countries. So they logged into the portal. They saw the balance was zero. Actually, it was negative. They even extended kind of the safety credit line that was there. And I think it's something that Arun mentioned earlier from Wise. It sounds like they're putting significant efforts into making sure there's always liquidity in the right places at the right time with their partners or with their banks. And here, the safety measures they had in place, they failed somehow. So they couldn't reach somebody at the partner, so they had only one option. They had to basically disable the withdrawals. And you can imagine how the customers felt. And a lot of us in the fintech industry over the last 10, 15 years, we created the illusion, especially for consumers, that payments is 24/7. But it is not 24/7. Money really only moves during working hours, during work days, not on weekends, and not on public holidays. And the fintech was told by the partner, we need euro or GBP in our bank account, otherwise there's not going to be any more withdrawals. I think that case really highlights that there's need for a new way of transferring money internationally that also works on a public holiday. And before we talk more about distributed ledger technology, Maxime will tell you a bit more about what's happening in the fiat world.
Thanks, Bernie. Cool. Hello, everyone. Look, that's the case with evidence like huge innovation in how banking and payments work. So there was an introduction of ATMs decades ago, and that enabled a self-serve flow for trivial banking operations. Then came the huge adoption of credit cards in one part of the world and APMs in the other part of the world. Last 20 years or so, we've got lucky with the introduction of internet banking and mobile banking, which have just like significantly disrupted our lives in the way we interact with the financial services. And finally, like in 2016, I believe there was a introduction of Apple Pay and later on Google Pay payment services, and now we have this smooth slick process and way to pay with your smartphone very consistently, both online and offline. But if we zoom in into all that and just try to give a little bit deeper look into what problems all these things solve exactly, we'll realize probably that all that is very much about solving the final customer problems and improving their experience. While deep inside, the core banking and payment systems still remain full of legacy. Let's take again this Apple Pay scenario. On the top, the tip of the iceberg, it looks like really innovative, looks fairly cool, yeah. But deep inside is just still old good ISA 8583 message, which is being moved across issuing, acquiring banks, card network, and so on. With so much legacy deep inside the backend, it's getting like harder and harder to innovate. It's getting more difficult to meet the business requirements of merchants as well as financial institutions. What are the implications of that? No, I think Bernie already gave us an excellent story. Like pretty typical. Settlement cycles are long. They don't work. Funds don't move over the weekends. Don't move over the holidays. Basically, they move only during the standard working hours. Is it acceptable? I don't know. Rather not. And in many instances, fees are like over the roof. Sometimes it takes up to several % to move funds cross-border. And yeah, of course, it has impact on all businesses, but even more on fintechs. And it sometimes just kills some of the business models. All in all, it feels like we're trying to put a lipstick on a pig. It feels like we're just build this super nice facade on top of like a pile of outdated technology, like low tech, something that I call low tech. But imagine a world where both consumer payments as well as B2B payments move cross-border 24/7, 365 days a year, and they do it in a compliant way. We at BVNK believe that that is possible, and it's possible when merging together the best from the two generations of financial technology. Existing legacy banking rails and the best from DLT. Doing so, one can meet the most ambitious business requirements of merchants and financial organizations. But before we dive deeper in how exactly it is done, and before we go into nuances of our product, I suggest that we have an overview of distributed ledger technology. And with that, I pass to Visma.
Thank you, Maxim. As Maxim already mentioned, before we dive deeper into the solutions and the product overview, I think it would be very important for us all to establish what exactly is DLT. And I know we already talked about it tonight. Many people share their opinions. But I think if we sort of look back and peel back the curtains and look at the basic building blocks of what makes up DLT, we will soon find that the DLT in its essence is a decentralized database that can be used by multiple parties to securely share and validate data, enabling transparent and tamper-proof record keeping. What is important to understand is that DLT is the underlying infrastructure, whereas cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum usually act as store of value. So cryptocurrencies actually leverage DLT to enable transparent and decentralized transactions, while DLT is actually what is under the hood, enabling these digital assets to succeed. In a nutshell, DLT has the power to really transform payments industry by enabling faster, more secure, and cost-effective transactions, while also becoming more accessible and removing intermediaries, which are usually associated with high costs and also long settlement times. A great example from the recent years has been the adoption of stablecoins as payment method. As you can see on the graph, stablecoins have literally went from 0 to hero in a span of 6 years, now reaching market capitalization of over 150 billion a year. So what is really interesting about this use case is that stablecoins, by large part, were very much adopted by countries in East Asia and Africa, where they actually utilize stablecoins to facilitate remittances and also business transactions. Stablecoins, by design, are pegged to a more stable asset, such as US dollar, which mitigates the volatility that you would usually see associated with cryptocurrencies, such as, Ethereum or Bitcoin. And that makes stablecoins a great alternative to traditional banking, having them complete applications from anything from everyday transactions until large business scale operations. However, at BVNK, we really believe that the real power of DLT lies within combination of DLT-based systems with traditional rails, where they're actually complementing each other rather than competing against each other. By integrating DLT and legacy rails such as Swift or SEPA, we can gain a more efficient, accessible, and cost-effective payments ecosystem that can benefit consumers, businesses, and also financial institutions. However, it wouldn't be fair to position DLT as the future of payments without addressing some of the major challenges that this technology still has to overcome in order to become mainstream. One of such challenges is still scalability, where increasing the number of transactions can lead to network congestions and slower processing times. Another challenge is interoperability between different DLT systems, which currently leads to a lack of seamless transactions between varied platforms. We already touched on this today on multiple of the panels, but obviously the lack of unified regulatory framework still is something that is holding us back, as different countries and regions have varied approaches to DLT payments, which causes confusion and obviously compliance concerns for the users. And finally, this is a technology that really is in its infancy, and the nascent state of it demands constant learning and adoption, which can be daunting to users and to businesses. However, all that being said, DLT, not without its challenges, is still a technology that we really believe in very strongly at BVNK. And we believe that these challenges can be overcome, and we really have an opportunity to upgrade the existing payment rails to facilitate faster, more secure, and more accessible payments worldwide. And now, to talk solutions, I will pass back to Bernie.
Thank you. Maybe just to really acknowledge that we are very aware of the challenges of DLT infrastructure. But it's very important to highlight also one key difference, that there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of software engineers working on this technology every day. They're evolving it every day. Probably last year you heard about, there was a lot of, there was, in the news, there were talked a lot about the energy consumption of these technologies. So the Ethereum community got together, they released an update, and they reduced the energy consumption by 99%. Like within a year. Can we expect something like that happening in SEPA or Swift? No. They are of course also evolving, and I liked the previous panelists made the point. Actually, in the last 10 years since Bitcoin was introduced, they actually did quite make a few upgrades. So I think they're also starting to feel the competition, and competition is always good. So I guess in the end it will be a win-win scenario, especially since we really strongly believe it will be a combination out of these systems and not just like a winner takes it all. And I think everyone in the panel shared it. And this is basically our mission. We want to make payments as resilient as the internet. And so far we have worked out four products. We want to be able to give bank accounts in Euro and GBP to our customers. We're working on USD. We want, with DLT payments, we want to enable businesses to accept and send stablecoins. With global settlement, we want to enable you to exchange in almost any currency. And then the last product that we're working on, but that we call right now embedded payments, is we want to build a unified API suite to actually allow you to take all this functionality into your own products and offer it part as your own product suite. We are a global company working to extend our footprint every week. If you're part of our platform, actually settlement in any currency will always be 24 hours. It will always happen 24 hours a day. All right, maybe, yeah, let's stop talking for now and let's give you a demo of our product. Josh, I think.
Yeah, I think we have demo on the screen.
Awesome.
All good. Yeah, thanks, Bernie. I'll try to make it fast. It seems like this demo is the last thing that sits between you and drinks. Oh, sorry, Max.
Oh no.
Then I'll pressure on you. So look, imagine a case when we have a merchant who's a customer of ours and who wants to convert euro into Singapore dollar and then make something that we call last mile mass payout to their individual customers in Singapore, in Singaporean dollars. That's the scenario that I'm going to show you right now. So there are two ways that this merchant could do it. One way is unified payment API, but it would be a bit boring if I would be showing you how we hit endpoints. The other way is merchant portal, and here is the merchant portal. So let's take a look there. So what they do is that they go into Global Settlement Network section in our merchant portal. They request a quote. They just want to convert some 50,000 euro into Singapore dollars. They see the rate. They accept the quote. Voila, magic is done. We have just converted euro into Singapore dollars, and we basically moved the value from European jurisdiction into Singaporean jurisdiction. What happened in the backstage? In the backstage, we used stablecoin rails in order to execute that. Yeah, now merchant received Singapore dollar in their account. They can see it within their wallet in virtual account section of our merchant portal, and then they can move to the next stage of all that. They can do mass payout. There are again two ways. It could have been done via API. Alternative is like much less heavy lifting. They need to create a CSV file and drag and drop it into the portal. The file is being parsed, and all one needs to do is just to double check if everything looks good and looks correct, and then with the hit of a button, they originate a number of payments to the individuals in Singapore. Yeah, here we have two-factor authentication, which is of course a must-have thing given we're a finance service. Yeah, and then payments are originated, and everything that one wants to do probably afterwards is just go to the portal and see which payments have hit the customers and been successful, and which payments have failed. Yeah, that also happens, but in most cases it's going to be a success. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The only presentation with 2 times applause. I just wanted to throw in another set of numbers in here. That was yesterday or the day before. What is basically the daily volume of a stablecoin? A day, and we see it's 20 billion, and that's every day. That's Saturday, Sunday on a public holiday. If you actually go to coinmarketcap.com, just see for yourself. It's happening every day. So if a month has 30 days, we're looking at like $600 billion of volume a month. So this is not like a small obscure niche that we're looking at. It's a tested system running every day. It is happening right now. And it's very interesting how Stripe actually talks about this. In Stripe, they liken it, or they compare it to the early days of e-commerce in the early 2000s. It was very hard for businesses to accept online payments. And Stripe famously revolutionized the way how online payments are being accepted. And they position DLT as the future of payments. So they already released one DLT-based product, and it's rumored that they're working on many more. They want to use the time now to really understand how it works, dip their toes in, and you can do the same. With a trusted partner like BVNK, with our products, we can help you to start learning about this new technology and see where we can help you move funds. Yeah, and with that, we can't really wait to go on the journey with you together. And thank you for your time.